All right, guys, Jack here with another product review, another one from VEVOR. One thing to always remember whenever you see me doing any product reviews, whether it's VEVOR or any product, that there's always a write-up to go along with it with additional pictures and things that I may reference in the video that I may not have edited into the video because I don't do a lot of editing. And all you got to do is check right down there in the video description for links, the additional write-up where you can find any additional pictures or any additional supporting videos or anything like that. And there probably will be some for this one. All right, so this is a food warmer. And so I want you to think about it like a low temperature oven, right? With precision power, precision temperature control. And it'll run, you know, probably as low as you could possibly want it to. You just don't plug it in, right? But up to about 170 degrees. I've tested it up to 160. And here's my assessment on the time it takes to heat up. And I want to say before I say any of these numbers, or when you read the write-up, to think about the fact that when I was doing this, I did have pans in here, but they're empty. And so you're heating it with no thermal mass. Now, normally, if you're using it to keep food warm, what would you do? You would put warm food into it, and then you would already have warm food. I did do some testing, and there'll be more of information on it in the write-up with exact numbers, but I basically ran my meter thermometer, 4 different probes on each shelf for this as we set things up. And what I just noticed there is probably why the bottom one ended up so much hotter. I actually had this off the track, and it was, this tray was probably touching the heater in the back. And the reason I pulled that out, I wanted you to be able to see the heater. So the cool thing about this, this is a PTC heater. This is not what you would normally expect in a unit at this cost. For this type of thing, you would expect to see something down there that looked like a hot plate or a stove element, and then maybe up top a basic thermometer that's just on and off. The heat comes on, when it gets to a certain temperature it goes off. This is actually much cooler. It's I don't pretend to understand everything about it, but it's in a lot of ways very similar to like a semiconductor. What's behind these fins here is actually ceramic. And what happens is the hotter it gets, the more resistance there is to it, the less power can go through it, which is probably why it takes longer and longer to reach the next highest temperature. It says right here, turn it on, adjust temperature, preheat about 20 minutes. And I'm going to tell you, if you want to hold food at about 130, 140-ish degrees, that's a completely valid number. I'm going to post in the write-up all of the heat up times. But I'm going to tell you, when you want to go from 140 to 150, it'll take you another good 10 minutes. And if you want to go 150 to 160, which is high as I took it today, because I wanted to get this video done and I wanted to let it cool back down, it's going to take a good, like, another 20 minutes to get to 160. So what it takes to get to 170, I don't know yet. I don't see a lot of people using this at 170 to keep food warm. And again, you're talking about keeping this entire chamber virtually empty at that temperature, because I just don't have call right now to make enough food to fill this thing up. I really do my best to give you guys real world feedback on these product reviews, but not so much that I'm going to go cook enough food for 50 people and then have nothing to do with it, especially on this weekend where we've been pretty busy. So here's what I love about it. And I also want to talk about, like, who is it good for and what is it good for? You know, obviously, if you're like somebody that goes to farmers markets and sells warm food and stuff like that, or like you have like a small store where you sell food where you want to keep it warm, obviously it's a commercial product. It's kind of built for that mindset or that utilitarian use. But there's a lot of other things this is really great for. If you're like me, your house is one of the places everybody goes for Thanksgiving. Okay, so what happens when that happens? You end up out of space. You can hold, and this is what was really important to me, they have a taller one that has 5 shelves. I didn't want it because when I checked it out, it will not hold, that one will not hold these big pans. So these big pans are what we use for our workshops, and it will hold either one of the large pans per shelf or 2 of the small pans per shelf. So you can hold, you know what, 8 little ones or 4 big ones or 4 little ones and 2 big ones, whatever you want to do, depending on how you allocate stuff. So like just the night that everybody shows up for my workshops, I cook tons of sausage, probably at least 4 of these trays completely full of sausage, just for like bratwurst and sausage for when people show up. So it's good for that. But Thanksgiving, man, you know, I have a commercial oven inside and all, it's great, but it still only has so much space. So being able to take all your side dishes, pack them up, wrap them up, and stick them in here, absolutely fantastic. You know what else this is great for? You guys that are like freaks about making barbecue and you make big cuts of barbecue. Now, you're not gonna fit a whole brisket, in my opinion, unless it's a really thin one between two of these shelves. Of course, this has got to keep doing that to me. Let me see if I can, here. That'll stop it. All right. So, but what you could do is go ahead, let me remove these. What you hear rattling around there is those meter probes. And then drop, of course, now I've got the bottle in the way. But you could drop that tray down to there on that level, and then you could have 2 whole briskets in here. I have no doubt those would fit. These trays are aluminum. Everything else is stainless steel, but the trays are aluminum. That's great. They're lightweight, easy to clean, easy to wash. And so it would be great for those of you guys that do like the barbecue thing in a Texas cheat. Wrap those cuts up, put them in here, set it to 150 degrees and leave it overnight and just end up with tender, juicy, wonderful barbecue. Just a fantastic little tool. Really, really simple. A little bit of assembly to do. There's some little feet you have to put on the bottom. That takes 30 seconds a foot. Then you have to put this on it. That's the only assembly there is. There is one negative in this when it comes to setup. When you get it, and I don't think I took pictures of it, it is absolutely covered. Every square inch of the stainless steel is covered with white stainless steel protecting film, and it is a pain in the butt to take off. But it's a pain in the butt once. And I want to tell you 2 things, because this was like the first time I ever had to take this off of something like a portable appliance, not like a refrigerator or something like that, where usually the installers get stuck doing it. One of the issues is where the steel is here. This protective film is on this before it's assembled, and it's pop riveted, so you ain't, you know, taking it off and getting behind it. So you just take an X-Acto knife and go in the groove and cut it and just leave it inside there. It's not gonna hurt anything. And then what I actually learned is if you take something like a blowtorch, believe it or not, like I'm taking a little torch, you know, something like this on a lower setting, and before you go to peel this off, you just kind of heat it up, it comes off so much easier. I would think a hairdryer would work, a heat gun would work. Now, if you're using flame, you would think it like would just burn a hole in it, and it would just like, if you go lower temperature and keep it moving, it doesn't. But where the edges are, it will melt it and it will burn it. So it's only where it's still stuck. So what I ended up doing was like heating it down to about here, peeling it down to about there, a little higher up, then heating it again from there down, and it made removal so much easier. You also end up with little bits of that plastic around these rivets. I treated them like pin feathers on a duck, man, when you're plucking a duck. I just took the little torch, my really little torch. Let's see, this little guy here, my little butane torch, and I just burned it off. And you can see I probably should have pulled on that one. It made it kind of a goober look on it, but the rest of them, it came out perfectly clean. So that's my little hack for you on that. But again, guys, 4 of these pans full of food, that's a lot of food to keep warm. And they have some really cool things about it too as well, like this little guy here. So this little cup, you fill this with water, and this keeps your humidity elevated in here, so you're not turning it into a low, long, slow heat. What does that equal? A dehydrator. So you don't want it to be a dehydrator, so that keeps it nice and moist. And man, it just works really great. Very simple to use. Turn it on. Did I unplug it? Yeah, I unplugged it. No, turn it on. You can see it'll go to the last place you had it set. And if you just start pushing it, nothing will happen, so hit set. And then you can start dropping your temperature. You know, and I think a really great temperature is going to be around 135 to keep food at serving temperature without overcooking it. And this is great for anything that you would want to do that with. You know, another thing is like my nephew, they do a lot for the whole family with, you know, having meals and parties and stuff at their house. This thing looks big. It's not heavy. One person can easily pick this up and carry it. It's not small. It's got some, you know, dimensional size to it, but it'll go in the backseat of anybody's car or trunk or something like that. So if you have family events where you want to help out by allowing your relatives to use it to like keep things warm and all, because we'll have events over there. There's 20, 30 people in their house at any one time, and you run out of places to keep your food warm. So I think it's absolutely fantastic for that. Now, there's another thing. This thing is incredibly energy efficient. I want to close it up for you here. It's already starting to warm up. You can see even with the doors open, it already jumped up to 101 degrees. But I want you to check this out. This is my kilowatt meter. And watch what's happening as it gets hotter. Do you see that? What direction are those numbers going? I mean, I'm not Common Core math or anything, but those numbers are going down, aren't they? Why is that the case? It's that heater which actually increases its resistance and allows less energy to pass through. So if this thing's dead cold, it's like 75 degrees, it hasn't been used at all yet in that day. When you first plug it in, it's going to spike right up to about 1,000 watts of power draw. It'll immediately start coming down. And once you get up into like that 130 range, you're going to be in the 700s, pulling about 700 watts. And then when it hits temperature, it will stop, pulling all together, and that'll drop down to like 1.5 watts. That's just running the computer in it, basically. It's almost nothing. And then the degrees of variable, there is no settings from that I can find, but what I can see is it's 3 degrees. So at 135, it'd hit 135 degree temperature. It'll hold there for me. It'll start to ebb back down, 134, 133, 132. It'll kick in. And every time I let it do that, at every temperature, at 120, 130, 140, 150 degrees, even 160 degrees, it fell 1 more degree before the temperature started rising. So you have a 4 degrees of rise. There is a variance, and I just wanted to kind of let it warm up a little bit. So you can see it's right now in this range. It will climb about 3 degrees a minute up to about 130 degrees. And then it's still pretty quick. It's like I actually did the math. It was like 2.8 degrees a minute up to 140. And it did well up to 145. And then it really starts to slow down after that. But when I ran temperatures, and I'll put pictures and screenshots of it, but there was a significant difference in the temperature of the lowest shelf and the highest shelf. The highest shelf was right at about whatever this said. And then the bottom shelf was significantly elevated. Again, I had that laying right on the heat, and then it's empty and there's no food to take up any thermal mass or whatever. So that thermometer is really not meant to be used that way. It doesn't even get hot enough in here for the ambient to go off on the meter thermometer system. So I was actually really impressed with it. And you're just not gonna, this is something people need to understand. With something like this, I don't care who made it, I don't care if it's the most expensive commercial one on the planet, you're not gonna have the same temperature. There's physics involved. The heat comes from here and it rises up to here. So your thermostat is let me pull this out. You can see the thermostat probe right there. That's it right there. So that's what's setting your temp. And so you are gonna be a little bit warmer in the bottom than the top. There's nothing wrong with that. You can see even with the doors open, the temp still came up a little bit. Anyway, it'll run again up to, whatever temperature you set, and then it will just maintain within about 3 or 4 degrees of that. So if you just need to keep a lot of food warm from time to time, these things are not that expensive for what they do. They're a hell of a lot less expensive than a second oven in your house if you have the space even. Definitely check them out. And again, the fact that you can keep 4 of these heated up, that's a lot of food, guys. Now, the one thing I will say, and I wanted to make sure I was very clear on this, there's not a huge amount of clearance shelf to shelf. You see that? So you really can't have any piling up. You have to kind of fill them to just barely maybe pile a little bit, give them a good wrap. And but I guarantee you, your performance is going to improve when there's food in there and there's thermal mass. You're asking it to work a lot harder right now than it normally would have to work because there is no thermal mass in there. Just like your freezer. Your freezer never works harder than when it's empty, and it never is easier on your freezer than when it's full and everything's frozen. So this is not an oven. Don't think you're gonna throw food in here and cook it. This is a hold warm. So your food going in should be warm at the time that it goes in. I'm sure it would warm food up if you gave it long enough. You hold food at 150 degrees long enough, it will come to 150 degrees, but this is designed. You've cooked food, you've put it, and you're putting it aside and you're holding warm. Take care, guys. Let me know if you have any questions, but man, I am jazzed about this for this year's workshop.